Close your eyes. Take a slow, deep breath. Feel the air fill your lungs with gentle ease. That breath you just took carries a story. A story that began over 3 billion years ago, when our planet was nothing like the world you know today. Picture Earth as a young world. No green forests. No blue skies. No flowers swaying in meadows. The air was thick with strange gases. Methane. Ammonia. Carbon dioxide. The sky glowed orange and red, like a permanent sunset. And in this alien world, something magical was about to happen. Deep in the ancient oceans, tiny cells floated like microscopic wanderers. They were simple things. Just small bubbles of life, drifting with the currents. But one day, one of these cells did something that had never been done before. It learned to eat light. Imagine that moment. Picture a cell smaller than the dot at the end of this sentence. Suddenly, it discovers it can capture sunlight. Not just feel its warmth, but actually consume it. Turn it into food. Transform it into energy. This was the first spark of photosynthesis. The word sounds complex, but it simply means making things with light. Photo means light. Synthesis means putting together. Making something from nothing, using only sunshine. That tiny cell became the first solar panel. But unlike the metal panels on rooftops today, this one was alive. It could grow. It could copy itself. And most importantly, it could share its gift with the world. As that first cell multiplied, something extraordinary began to happen. Each time it ate sunlight, it breathed out a waste product. A gas that had barely existed on Earth before. Oxygen. The same oxygen that now fills your lungs. The same oxygen that keeps every animal alive. The same oxygen that makes fire possible, that creates the protective layer high above us, that turns iron to rust and gives us the blue sky you see every morning. But this took time. Incredible amounts of time. For over 1 billion years, those early photosynthetic cells worked in quiet patience. They multiplied slowly. They spread through the oceans like green ink dissolving in water. And with each passing millennium, they added more oxygen to the world. The other life forms on Earth didn't know what to make of this strange new gas. To them, oxygen was poison. It burned through their simple bodies like acid. Many ancient species died out, unable to adapt to this changing world. But some learned to not just survive oxygen. They learned to use it. To breathe it. To burn food with it and create more energy than ever before. These oxygen-breathing creatures became the ancestors of every animal you've ever seen. Including you. Think about that connection. Every breath you take links you directly to those first photosynthetic cells. They created the air you need to live. They transformed a toxic world into a garden. And they're still doing it. Right now, as you rest here, billions of tiny green cells are working all around you. In the grass outside your window. In the trees lining your street. In the houseplant sitting quietly in the corner. Even in the microscopic algae floating in puddles after rain. Each one is capturing sunlight. Each one is splitting water molecules apart like breaking apart tiny Lego blocks. Each one is grabbing carbon dioxide from the air and building it into sugar. And each one is releasing fresh oxygen as a gift to the world. It's the same process that started billions of years ago. The same ancient dance of light and chemistry. The same patient work that made complex life possible. When you walk through a forest, you're walking through the descendants of that first light-eating cell. When you smell the fresh air after a thunderstorm, you're breathing the product of billions of years of photosynthetic evolution. This process isn't just beautiful. It's powerful. So powerful that scientists today are trying to copy it. They want to build machines that can eat light and pollution the way plants do. They dream of creating artificial leaves that could clean our air and power our cities. But to understand how we might engineer better ways to clean the air, we first need to understand exactly how nature does it. We need to peek inside the green world and watch the machinery that has been perfecting itself for billions of years. The story of photosynthesis is ultimately a story about cooperation. About tiny parts working together to create something much larger than themselves. About individual cells joining forces to transform an entire planet. It's a story that continues every time the sun rises. Every time a seed sprouts. Every time you take a breath. And it's a story that might hold the key to healing our world's air, one ray of sunlight at a time. As you settle deeper into rest tonight, imagine those first brave cells, floating in ancient seas, reaching toward the light. They couldn't have known they were beginning a revolution that would last billions of years. But perhaps, in their simple way, they could sense the vast potential waiting to unfold in each captured photon of light. Reach out and touch a leaf. Any leaf will do. The one on your houseplant. A blade of grass. A petal from a flower. Feel its surface. Smooth and cool. Soft and alive. Now imagine you could shrink yourself down. Smaller than an ant. Smaller than a grain of sand. So small you could slip between the cells and see what's really happening inside. You would discover the most beautiful factory ever created. This factory has no smokestacks. No loud machines. No workers rushing around with hard hats. Instead, it hums with quiet precision. Every part moves in perfect harmony. And the entire operation runs on nothing but sunlight and water. Welcome to the world of chloroplasts. Each leaf cell contains dozens of these tiny green machines. They float like emerald islands in the liquid interior of the cell. Under a powerful microscope, they look like green pills with intricate folds inside. But these folds aren't random. They're organized like the most sophisticated assembly line you could imagine. Think of chloroplasts as nature's solar panels. But they're so much more than that. They're living, breathing, growing solar panels that can repair themselves when damaged. They can make more of themselves when needed. And they've been perfecting their design for over 2 billion years. Here's the remarkable thing about chloroplasts. They weren't always part of plant cells. Long ago, they lived as free-swimming bacteria in ancient oceans. They were independent creatures with their own DNA, their own cell walls, their own way of life. But one day, something extraordinary happened. A larger cell swallowed one of these bacteria. But instead of digesting it, something magical occurred. The two cells decided to work together. The larger cell provided protection and nutrients. The bacteria provided food made from sunlight. It was the perfect partnership. Over millions of years, they became so dependent on each other that they could no longer survive apart. This ancient cooperation still lives inside every green thing you see. Every chloroplast in every leaf carries its own DNA. It's separate from the plant's DNA. It's the genetic memory of those first bacterial partners who chose cooperation over competition. When you look at a tree, you're really looking at millions of tiny partnerships. Each chloroplast is a descendant of those ancient bacteria. Each one is a living reminder that cooperation can create something more beautiful than either partner could achieve alone. Inside each chloroplast, the real magic happens. Picture stacks of green pancakes. These are called thylakoids. They're where the light catching happens. The green color comes from chlorophyll, a molecule that's perfectly designed to grab sunlight and hold onto it. Chlorophyll molecules are arranged like tiny antennas across the thylakoid surface. When sunlight hits them, they vibrate with energy. It's like they're singing in frequencies you can't hear. This energy gets passed from molecule to molecule, like children playing telephone, until it reaches special reaction centers. At these reaction centers, the captured light energy does something incredible. It splits water molecules apart. Water is simple. 2 hydrogen atoms hugging 1 oxygen atom. But breaking this bond takes enormous energy. The kind of energy that only comes from the sun. When water splits, amazing things happen. The hydrogen gets captured and stored. The oxygen floats away as waste. But this waste is the oxygen you breathe. The oxygen that keeps you alive. Meanwhile, carbon dioxide from the air enters through tiny pores in the leaf. These pores are called stomata. Think of them as the leaf's breathing holes. They open during the day to let carbon dioxide in and oxygen out. Inside the chloroplast, the captured hydrogen meets the carbon dioxide. With the help of enzymes that work like tiny chemical tools, they combine to form sugar. This sugar is plant food. But it's also the foundation of all life on Earth. Every bite of food you've ever eaten traces back to this moment when sunlight becomes sugar inside a chloroplast. The process happens millions of times per second in every chloroplast. Billions of times per second in every leaf. And there are trillions of leaves on Earth, all working together in this quiet, constant symphony of creation. What makes this even more amazing is how efficient it all is. The best human-made solar panels convert about 20% of sunlight into useful energy. Plants convert less than that. But they do something our solar panels can't do. They repair themselves when damaged. They grow when conditions are right. They store energy as food. They release oxygen as a gift. And they do it all using materials as simple as water, air, and sunlight. Scientists today study chloroplasts with wonder and respect. They're trying to understand exactly how these tiny machines work so perfectly. They want to copy this design to create better ways to capture solar energy and clean the air. Some researchers are building artificial chloroplasts in laboratories. Others are trying to improve the natural ones through gentle genetic modifications. They dream of plants that could work even better at cleaning pollution from the air. But the more scientists learn about chloroplasts, the more amazed they become. Nature has already created the most sophisticated energy conversion system imaginable. It's been tested and refined for billions of years. And it's available for free in every green leaf. As you prepare for sleep tonight, think about the chloroplasts in the plants around you. They're still working, even in the darkness. They're storing the energy they captured during the day. They're preparing for tomorrow's sunrise when they'll begin their quiet work again. Each chloroplast is a masterpiece of engineering. A living memory of ancient cooperation. A tiny factory that turns light into life. And tomorrow, when the sun rises and light streams through windows and leaves, millions of these green machines will begin their daily miracle once more, transforming simple ingredients into the very breath of life itself. Breathe out slowly. Feel the warm air leaving your lungs. That air you just released carries carbon dioxide. An invisible gas that your body creates as it burns food for energy. Most people think of carbon dioxide as waste. Something to get rid of. But to the green world around you, that gas is treasure. Every leaf, every blade of grass, every tiny algae floating in a pond considers your exhaled breath a gift. They're waiting to catch those carbon dioxide molecules and transform them into something miraculous. This transformation is chemistry so elegant it feels like magic. Ancient alchemists dreamed of turning common metals into gold. But plants perform an even more remarkable feat: they turn thin air into food. Let's follow a single molecule of carbon dioxide on its journey from your breath to a leaf. Picture this molecule drifting through the air. It's incredibly small. So small that millions could dance on the head of a pin. It consists of one carbon atom embraced by two oxygen atoms. Simple. Stable. Unremarkable. But when morning sunlight warms a leaf, tiny pores called stomata begin to open. These breathing holes are scattered across the leaf's surface like microscopic mouths. They sense the rising sun and stretch wide, ready to welcome the day. Your carbon dioxide molecule drifts closer. Air currents carry it gently toward an open stoma. The leaf draws it in like taking a breath. The molecule tumbles through winding air spaces inside the leaf. Past spongy cells. Around water droplets. Until it reaches its destination. A chloroplast. Inside this green factory, the carbon dioxide encounters something extraordinary. An enzyme called rubisco. This protein is probably the most important molecule you've never heard of. It exists in every photosynthetic organism on Earth. In every leaf, every blade of grass, every microscopic ocean dweller that makes oxygen. RUBISCO has one job. It grabs carbon dioxide molecules and helps them join with other molecules to begin their transformation into sugar. But this process needs energy. Lots of it. And that energy comes from the other half of photosynthesis. The light reactions happening nearby in the same chloroplast. Remember those thylakoids we visited in the last chapter? Those green pancake-like structures where chlorophyll catches sunlight? They're working hard right now. Sunlight streams in through the leaf. Chlorophyll molecules absorb it. The energy bounces from molecule to molecule until it reaches reaction centers. Here's where the magic gets intense. The captured light energy splits water molecules apart. This takes tremendous force. Water is stable. Those hydrogen and oxygen atoms like being together. But the energy from sunlight is stronger than their chemical bond. When water splits, hydrogen ions scatter like startled birds. But they don't fly away. Special proteins capture them and hold them tight. Meanwhile, the oxygen atoms find each other and form the oxygen gas that bubbles away as a gift to the world. The captured hydrogen ions create something remarkable. They build up like water behind a dam. The pressure grows and grows until it powers tiny molecular machines called ATP syntheses. These spin like turbines, creating packets of chemical energy called ATP. Think of ATP as nature's rechargeable battery. It stores the sun's energy in a form that cells can use immediately. Now comes the beautiful part. The part where air becomes food. In a different part of the chloroplast, your carbon dioxide molecule meets RUBISCO. With energy from ATP and help from those captured hydrogen ions, something amazing happens. The carbon dioxide joins with other molecules in a dance of chemistry. One step, then another, then another. It's called the Calvin cycle, after the scientist who first mapped this molecular choreography. Step by step, carbon dioxide transforms. It gains atoms. It loses atoms. It rearranges itself. Other molecules join the dance. The rhythm continues through dozens of precise chemical steps. And then, like a caterpillar emerging as a butterfly, something entirely new appears. Sugar. Not the white crystals you put in coffee, but glucose. A simple sugar that carries energy in its molecular bonds. This glucose is food. Real food. The foundation of every meal you've ever eaten. But here's what makes this truly miraculous. The leaf creates this sugar from almost nothing. From invisible gas. From water. From sunlight. 3 simple ingredients that exist everywhere. And from these common things, it builds the molecular fuel that powers all of life. Every bite of bread traces back to this moment. Every piece of fruit. Every vegetable. Even meat comes from animals that ate plants that made their food through this process. You are literally made of sunlight and air that plants transformed into food. The newly formed sugar doesn't stay in the leaf. Some of it travels through tiny tubes to feed the rest of the plant. Some get stored in roots or fruits or seeds. And some becomes the building blocks for wood, bark, petals, and everything else the plant creates. Meanwhile, the oxygen atoms that were split away from water molecules have found their way to the air spaces inside the leaf. They drift toward the stomata. They escape into the atmosphere. They join the oxygen you breathe. Every second breath you take was created this way. By a plant splitting water and releasing oxygen as a byproduct of making sugar from air. This process happens billions of times every second across the earth. In forests and grasslands. In gardens and fields. In microscopic plants floating in oceans. Each instance is a small miracle of transformation. Scientists studying this process are amazed by its elegance. The way simple ingredients become complex molecules. The way waste products become life-giving gases. The way sunlight becomes stored energy. They're working to copy this process, to build artificial systems that could take carbon dioxide from the air and transform it into useful products. Some researchers are creating modified plants that could work even better at capturing carbon from the atmosphere. But the more they study photosynthesis, the more they appreciate nature's original design. Billions of years of evolution have created a system of remarkable efficiency and beauty. As you settle deeper into rest, imagine this quiet alchemy happening all around you. In the darkness, plants are still processing the sugars they made during the day. They're still breathing, still transforming simple molecules into the complex chemistry of life. Tomorrow, when sunlight returns, the dance will begin again. Carbon dioxide will enter leaves like shy guests. Water will rise from roots like prayers. And in countless green theaters across the world, the ancient recipe will unfold once more. But plants aren't the only ones performing this miraculous transformation. Soon, we'll discover how different seasons bring their own rhythms to this eternal dance of light and life. Listen to the rhythm of your breathing. In and out. Deep and slow. Notice how it changes throughout the day. Faster when you're active. Slower when you rest. Your body knows these rhythms without thinking. The green world around you breathes too. But its rhythms follow a different clock. Not the tick of hours, but the turning of seasons. Not the rise and fall of a single day, but the great wheel of the year. Spring arrives like a gentle awakening. Imagine a forest in early March. The trees stand bare against grey skies. Their branches reach toward the sun like sleeping arms beginning to stretch. Deep in their roots, something stirs. The first warm days send signals through bark and wood. It's time to wake up. Buds swell on countless branches. Inside each tiny bud, leaves wait in perfect miniature. Folded and ready. When the temperature stays warm for several days, they begin to unfurl. These first spring leaves are different from summer leaves. They're tender, pale green, translucent enough that sunlight passes through them like colored glass. They photosynthesize eagerly but gently, like children taking their first careful steps. Spring photosynthesis is all about growth. The sugars these young leaves make don't get stored. They get used immediately to build new wood, to push out more leaves, to fuel the explosive growth of spring. Walk through a forest in late April and you can almost feel this energy. Everything reaching upward. Everything hungry for light after the long winter sleep. But spring leaves face a challenge. The days are still cool. The sun angle is low. There isn't as much light energy available as there will be in summer. So spring leaves work with what they have. They're efficient, patient. They make the most of every photon. Then summer arrives with abundance. By June, the forest has transformed. The canopy is thick and full. Leaves have grown larger, darker, more confident. They've developed waxy coatings to protect against strong sunlight. Their chloroplasts have multiplied. Summer is the feast season for photosynthesis. The sun rises early and sets late. Light pours through leaves for 15 hours each day. Temperatures warm the air and speed up chemical reactions. Water flows freely from roots to leaves through the vascular highways of trees. During these long summer days, forests work at their maximum capacity. They pull vast amounts of carbon dioxide from the air. They release enormous quantities of oxygen. They produce more sugar than they can use immediately. This excess gets stored in thick tree trunks, in swollen roots, in fruits and seeds. The forest is preparing for leaner times ahead. Summer photosynthesis sounds like a soft, constant hum. Billions of stomata opening and closing. Millions of gallons of water evaporating from leaf surfaces. The chemical machinery of countless chloroplasts working in perfect coordination. On a hot July day, a single large oak tree can pump hundreds of gallons of water from soil to sky. All that water carries dissolved minerals up from the roots. When it evaporates from the leaves, it cools the tree like natural air conditioning. This summer symphony continues day after day. Week after week. The forest grows fatter and stronger, storing energy for the challenges ahead. Then autumn whispers its first warnings. The days grow shorter. The sun's angle drops lower in the sky. Temperatures begin their slow decline. And deep in the chemistry of leaves, changes begin. Trees sense these shifts long before you notice them. They start preparing for winter in subtle ways. They slow down their sugar production. They begin moving stored nutrients from leaves back into branches and roots. As chlorophyll production slows, other colors emerge. Yellow carotenoids that were always there, hidden beneath the green. Orange and red anthocyanins that leaves create as they prepare to fall. These autumn colors aren't just beautiful. They're signs of a great metabolic shift. The tree is withdrawing its investment from leaves that won't survive winter. It's pulling back nutrients. Closing down the photosynthetic factories. Preparing to sleep. Autumn photosynthesis becomes increasingly precious. Each warm, sunny day is a gift. Trees make the most of these final opportunities to create and store energy before winter arrives. When leaves finally fall, they carry their story in their colors. The deep reds of maple speak of anthocyanins created as the tree recycled nutrients. The golden yellows of birches reveal carotenoids that helped capture light all summer long. Winter brings the great pause. Deciduous trees stand bare. Their photosynthetic machinery shut down. Their energy stored safely in roots and trunk. They breathe slowly now, using stored sugars to maintain basic life functions. Waiting. But even in winter, photosynthesis continues. Evergreen trees keep their needles. These modified leaves are built for endurance. They have thick, waxy coatings, antifreeze chemicals in their cells. They can photosynthesize even on cold, sunny winter days. The rate is slow. Much slower than summer's frantic pace. But it's enough. These trees maintain themselves through winter's challenges. They're ready to take advantage of spring's early warmth while deciduous trees are still waking up. This seasonal symphony plays out across the entire planet. In northern forests and tropical rainforests. In grasslands and tundra. Each ecosystem has its own rhythm. Its own way of matching photosynthetic activity to the changing conditions of the year. Your own body follows similar patterns. You feel more energetic on long summer days. You crave heavier foods as winter approaches. You sleep more during the dark months. Ancient rhythms still pulse in your cells, connecting you to the same seasonal cycles that guide the green world. Scientists measure these global rhythms from space. Satellites detect the changing colors of forests. The seasonal rise and fall of atmospheric carbon dioxide as plants wake up and go dormant. The planet itself breathes with the seasons. But the ocean follows different rules. There, in the vast blue spaces between continents, another kind of photosynthesis unfolds. One that depends not on seasons, but on currents and chemistry and microscopic gardens that most people never see. Imagine standing at the edge of the ocean. Waves roll toward your feet. The water stretches to the horizon, blue and endless. The surface sparkles in sunlight like scattered diamonds. Most of what you see appears empty. Just water. But if you could shrink yourself down to the size of a dust particle and dive beneath the surface, you would discover the largest garden on Earth. This garden has no soil. No roots. No stems reaching toward the sky. Instead, it floats. It drifts. It rises and falls with currents and tides. And it's filled with gardeners so small that millions could fit in a single drop of seawater. Welcome to the world of phytoplankton. The word sounds complex, but it's simply Greek for wandering plants. These microscopic organisms drift through the oceans like living specks of dust. Each one is a complete photosynthetic factory. Smaller than the width of a human hair. Some are so tiny that they approach the limits of what can be considered alive. Yet these invisible wanderers create more oxygen than all the forests on land combined. Think about that for a moment. Every second breath you take comes from these tiny ocean drifters. The oxygen filling your lungs right now was made by creatures you can't see, floating in waters you may never visit. Phytoplankton come in countless forms. Some look like perfect glass spheres decorated with intricate patterns. Others resemble tiny wheels with delicate spokes. Some are shaped like crescents, stars, or chains of connected beads. One group called diatoms build shells from silica, the same material that makes glass. These shells are masterpieces of microscopic architecture. They have holes and ridges and patterns more complex than any human artist could create. When diatoms die, their glass shells drift to the ocean floor like microscopic snow. Another group, the cacholithophores, wraps itself in plates of calcium carbonate. The same material that makes chalk and limestone. These tiny armored spheres reflect sunlight so brightly that they can be seen from space when they bloom in vast numbers. But perhaps the most important are the cyanobacteria. These are the descendants of Earth's first photosynthetic organisms. The ones that invented oxygen production billions of years ago. They still drift through the oceans today, carrying on the ancient work that made complex life possible. Each type of phytoplankton has its own preferred conditions. Some love warm tropical waters. Others thrive in cold polar seas. Some prefer the surface where light is brightest. Others can photosynthesize in the dim blue twilight far below. What unites them all is their ability to turn sunlight and simple chemicals into food. Just like land plants, they capture carbon dioxide from water. They split water molecules to get hydrogen. They use solar energy to build sugar from these simple ingredients. But ocean photosynthesis faces unique challenges. Light fades quickly underwater. Even in the clearest ocean water, most sunlight disappears within the first 100 feet. Below that, the world grows dim and blue. Deeper still, darkness reigns. So phytoplankton must live near the surface where light penetrates. But the surface can be a harsh place. Waves mix the water constantly. Currents carry the tiny organisms wherever they flow. They have no control over where they go. Many phytoplankton have evolved clever solutions. Some can adjust their density to rise or sink as needed. Others form chains or colonies that are harder for currents to scatter. Some produce oil droplets that help them float. The most successful phytoplankton are those that can take advantage of ocean upwelling. This happens when deep, cold water rises toward the surface. This water is rich in nutrients that have settled from above. Nitrogen, phosphorus, and other minerals that phytoplankton need to grow. When nutrient-rich water meets sunlight at the surface, magic happens. Phytoplankton populations explode. What was clear blue water becomes green with life. These blooms can be so massive they're visible from satellites in space. During a bloom, the ocean transforms into a photosynthetic powerhouse. Billions upon billions of tiny organisms work together. They pull carbon dioxide from the water. They release oxygen. They create the base of the ocean food web. Small fish eat the phytoplankton. Larger fish eat the small fish. Whales strain millions of these tiny organisms from the water. Even the largest animals on Earth depend on some of the smallest. But phytoplankton blooms don't last forever. As they consume available nutrients, the population crashes. Most die and sink toward the ocean floor. Some are eaten. Others form resting stages that can survive until conditions improve. This rise and fall of phytoplankton populations creates the ocean's breathing rhythm. During blooms, vast amounts of carbon dioxide get pulled from the water and atmosphere. When blooms die, some of that carbon sinks to the deep ocean. Some gets recycled back to the surface. This ocean breathing affects the entire planet's climate. The oceans absorb about a quarter of all the carbon dioxide that humans release into the atmosphere. Much of this absorption happens because of phytoplankton photosynthesis. Scientists study phytoplankton from ships and satellites. They measure ocean color to track bloom patterns. Green water means lots of phytoplankton. Blue water means fewer. The patterns change with seasons, weather, and ocean currents. They've discovered that phytoplankton populations are changing as the oceans warm. Some species are moving toward the poles. Others are shifting to different depths. These changes could affect how much carbon dioxide the oceans can absorb in the future. Understanding phytoplankton is crucial for understanding Earth's climate. These tiny organisms have been regulating atmospheric carbon dioxide for billions of years. They've survived ice ages and warming periods. They've adapted to changing ocean chemistry and evolving predators. But today's changes are happening faster than ever before. Ocean temperature, acidity, and chemistry are all shifting rapidly. Scientists wonder how quickly phytoplankton can adapt. Some researchers are exploring ways to help ocean photosynthesis work more efficiently. They study which nutrients limit phytoplankton growth. They investigate how to encourage beneficial blooms while preventing harmful ones. Others are working to protect ocean ecosystems that support healthy phytoplankton populations. Clean water, stable temperatures, and balanced nutrients all help these tiny organisms thrive. As you prepare for sleep tonight, picture the vast ocean garden surrounding our planet. In the darkness, currents carry countless microscopic gardeners through the water. When dawn breaks over distant seas, they'll begin their daily work again. Catching sunlight that penetrates the waves. Converting carbon dioxide into food. Releasing the oxygen that travels through air and water to eventually reach your lungs. Your breath connects you to these invisible workers. Your life depends on their success. And tomorrow, as waves continue their eternal rhythm, these tiny ocean wanderers will continue their ancient task of keeping our blue planet breathing. But phytoplankton aren't the only marine organisms that have mastered the art of photosynthesis. In warmer waters, where sunlight penetrates deeper, extraordinary partnerships have evolved that create some of the most beautiful and productive ecosystems on Earth. Picture yourself floating in warm, crystal-clear water. Below you stretches a city unlike any other. Buildings rise in fantastic shapes. Towers spiral toward the surface. Gardens bloom in colors that seem too bright to be real. This is a coral reef. And every structure you see was built by tiny animals working in partnership with even tinier plants. Each coral polyp is smaller than your fingernail. It looks like a miniature sea anemone, with a ring of tentacles surrounding a central mouth. Soft and translucent. Vulnerable and small. Yet these tiny creatures have built some of the largest living structures on Earth. The Great Barrier Reef stretches for over 1,000 miles. It's so vast that astronauts can see it from space. All of it built by billions of coral polyps, each no bigger than a pea. But corals have a secret. They're not just animals. They're living partnerships. Inside each coral polyp live microscopic algae called zooxanthellae. The name sounds complicated, but these are simply tiny photosynthetic organisms. Like the phytoplankton we met in the open ocean, but these have chosen to live inside other creatures. This partnership began millions of years ago. A coral ancestor somehow swallowed some algae but didn't digest them. Instead, something remarkable happened. The two organisms discovered they could help each other. The coral provides the algae with a safe home. It gives them nutrients from its own body. It positions them perfectly in shallow water where sunlight can reach them. In return, the algae share their food. They photosynthesize inside the coral's tissues, creating sugar from sunlight and carbon dioxide. Much of this sugar goes directly to their coral host. It's a perfect arrangement. The algae get protection and nutrients. The coral gets a constant supply of food made from sunlight. Neither could thrive alone in the competitive reef environment. This partnership is so intimate that the algae live inside the coral's cells. They float in the coral's body fluids like tiny green passengers. Each coral polyp can house millions of these microscopic partners. The algae give corals their brilliant colors. Pure coral tissue is actually translucent. The vibrant greens, browns, and golden hues come from the algae living within. Different species of algae create different colors, like living paint mixed into the coral's flesh. During the day, when sunlight penetrates the clear tropical water, the algae work frantically. They photosynthesize at rates that would make land plants jealous. The sugar they produce feeds not just themselves and their coral hosts, but entire reef communities. This shared photosynthesis makes coral reefs incredibly productive. Despite growing in nutrient-poor tropical waters, they support more species per square foot than rainforests. The partnership between coral and algae creates abundance in what would otherwise be an ocean desert. But this partnership requires precise conditions. The water must be warm but not too hot. Clear but rich enough in dissolved nutrients. The right depth for sunlight to penetrate, but not so shallow that the corals dry out at low tide. When conditions become stressful, the partnership can break down. If water temperatures rise too high, the coral expels its algae partners. Without their colorful symbionts, the coral turns stark white. This is called coral bleaching. Bleached corals aren't necessarily dead. They can survive for weeks or even months without their algae partners. But they're starving. Without the constant supply of sugar from photosynthesis, they begin to weaken. If conditions return to normal quickly, new algae can move in. The partnership can rebuild. Colors return. But if stress continues too long, the coral dies. Climate change is making coral bleaching more common. Ocean temperatures are rising. Carbon dioxide is making seawater more acidic. These changes stress the delicate partnership that has existed for millions of years. Scientists studying coral reefs are amazed by their resilience and complexity. Some corals can adjust to changing conditions by switching to different types of algae. Others produce natural sunscreens to protect their partners from too much light. Researchers are learning that coral partnerships are even more complex than once thought. Different coral species host different algae communities. Even individual corals can house multiple algae species simultaneously. Some algae are better at handling heat stress. Others work more efficiently in low light. The coral can favor whichever algae partners serve it best under current conditions. This flexibility gives scientists hope. They're working to understand which coral algae partnerships are most resilient. They're identifying heat-tolerant corals that might survive in a warming ocean. Some researchers are even trying to help corals adapt faster. They're breeding heat-resistant algae in laboratories. They're transplanting hardy corals to degraded reefs. They're creating coral nurseries where young polyps can grow safely before being moved to wild reefs. The coral partnership offers lessons for human engineering. Scientists dream of creating artificial systems that combine multiple organisms to solve environmental problems. Living buildings that could purify air and water. Biological factories that could produce useful materials while cleaning up pollution. Corals show how cooperation can create something more powerful than either partner could achieve alone. The animal provides structure and protection. The plant provides energy from sunlight. Together, they build ecosystems that support countless other species. As coral polyps prepare for night, they extend their tentacles to catch drifting plankton. Their algae partners rest, having spent the day converting sunlight into food. The reef settles into its nocturnal rhythm. But even as many coral reefs face unprecedented challenges, the partnership that built them continues in countless variations across the ocean. Different animals hosting different photosynthetic partners. Each finding its own way to harness the power of sunlight in the underwater world. And in some of Earth's harshest environments, other plants have discovered their own remarkable ways to capture and use light, developing strategies so unusual they seem to bend the rules of photosynthesis itself. Step into a desert at midnight. The air is finally cool after a scorching day. Stars shine brilliantly in the clear, dry sky. Most plants rest in the darkness, waiting for dawn to begin photosynthesis again. But here in the desert, rebels are stirring. A massive saguaro cactus stands silhouetted against the starlight. Its arms reach toward the sky like a giant frozen in time. During the blazing afternoon, this cactus appeared dormant. Its thick skin was sealed tight against the heat. But now, in the cool darkness, something remarkable begins. Tiny pores along its surface start to open. Not to release oxygen, as most plants do during the day. Instead, this giant is breathing in carbon dioxide from the night air. The saguaro has learned to photosynthesize backwards in time. Most plants follow a simple schedule. When the sun rises, they open their stomata to let carbon dioxide in. They capture sunlight and immediately use it to transform that carbon dioxide into sugar. When darkness falls, they close their pores and rest. But desert plants face a terrible choice. They need carbon dioxide to photosynthesize. But if they open their stomata during the blazing desert day, they'll lose precious water through those same openings. In the desert, losing water means death. So desert plants became time rebels. They developed a completely different strategy. They decided to separate the two parts of photosynthesis in time. At night, when the air is cool and humid, cacti and other desert succulents open their stomata wide. They breathe in carbon dioxide eagerly. But instead of using it immediately, they store it. The carbon dioxide gets converted into organic acids. Think of these acids as chemical storage containers. The plant packs the carbon dioxide away like storing grain in a silo. All night long, it continues this process. Collecting, storing, preparing. When dawn breaks and the desert begins to heat up, the cactus closes its stomata tight. No more gas exchange with the outside world. The plant seals itself against the coming heat. But photosynthesis doesn't stop. It just switches to a different phase. During the day, sunlight streams down onto the cactus. Chloroplasts in the thick stem begin their work. But instead of getting carbon dioxide from the air, they get it from those storage acids created during the night. The plant slowly unpacks its nighttime collection. It breaks down the organic acids, releasing the stored carbon dioxide inside its own tissues. This internal carbon dioxide gets processed just like any other plant would process it. Combined with water and sunlight to create sugar. It's like having a chemical time capsule. The plant captures what it needs during the safe, cool night. Then it uses those captured materials during the bright, dangerous day. This process is called CAM photosynthesis. The letters stand for the scientific name, but you can think of it as careful and methodical photosynthesis. These plants trade speed for survival. Can plants grow slowly? They can't photosynthesize as fast as regular plants because they have to work with stored materials instead of fresh air. But they can survive where other plants would quickly die. This patient approach to photosynthesis appears throughout the plant kingdom. Pineapples use CAM photosynthesis. So do many orchids, bromeliads, and other tropical plants that grow on tree branches where water is scarce. Even some plants that live in salt marshes use this method. Salt water is like poison to most plants. But CAM photosynthesis helps these coastal dwellers manage both salt stress and water conservation. The beauty of CAM photosynthesis lies in its flexibility. Some plants can switch between normal and CAM photosynthesis depending on conditions. When water is plentiful, they photosynthesize normally during the day. When drought strikes, they shift to nighttime carbon dioxide collection. This flexibility fascinates scientists studying climate change. As the world grows warmer and drier, understanding how plants can adapt their photosynthetic timing becomes crucial. Some researchers are working to transfer CAM traits to crop plants. Imagine corn or wheat that could collect carbon dioxide at night when it's cooler and more humid. These crops might need less water while still producing food. Others are studying how CAM plants manage their internal chemistry. The process of storing and releasing carbon dioxide requires precise molecular controls. Understanding these controls could help engineer better biological systems. Can plants also offer lessons about patience and timing? In our fast-paced world, these desert dwellers remind us that sometimes the best strategy is to wait for the right moment. They show us that there's more than one way to solve a problem. When the environment becomes challenging, innovation often comes from changing the timing rather than changing the basic process. The efficiency of CAM plants in extreme conditions makes them valuable for restoration projects. They can establish themselves in degraded landscapes where other plants fail. Their slow, steady growth eventually creates conditions that allow other species to return. In botanical gardens around the world, collections of CAM plants showcase the incredible diversity of this strategy. Barrel cacti from the Sonoran Desert. Jade plants from South Africa. Pineapple plants from tropical America. All using variations of the same time-shifting approach. These gardens become libraries of adaptation strategies. Each plant represents millions of years of evolution solving the same basic problem: how to photosynthesize when water is precious. As the desert night progresses, countless CAM plants continue their quiet work. Collecting carbon dioxide. Storing it safely. Preparing for another day of intense heat and brilliant sunshine. Their patient rhythm connects to cycles larger than themselves. They respond to daily temperature changes, to seasonal rainfall patterns, to the long-term climate cycles that shape desert ecosystems. When dawn finally comes to the desert, the CAM plants will close their stomata and begin the day's shift of their photosynthetic work. They'll spend the daylight hours processing what they collected in darkness. But their nighttime innovation has inspired human scientists to dream of new possibilities. If plants can separate photosynthesis in time, perhaps humans can learn to separate and optimize other biological processes as well. In laboratories around the world, researchers are beginning to explore what desert plants have known for millions of years. Sometimes the secret to surviving harsh conditions isn't working harder, but working smarter about when you do the work. Picture a quiet laboratory late at night. Fluorescent lights hum softly overhead. Rows of glass containers line the shelves, each one glowing with a different shade of green. Inside these vessels, tiny organisms swim and multiply. They look nothing like the leaves on trees outside, yet they're performing the same ancient miracle. This is where scientists come to school with nature. For over a century, researchers have tried to understand exactly how photosynthesis works. They've peered into chloroplasts with powerful microscopes. They've measured the speed of chemical reactions. They've mapped every step of the process that turns sunlight into food. But understanding something and copying it are very different challenges. Dr. Sarah Chen adjusts her microscope and peers at a drop of green water. Swimming in that tiny droplet are thousands of algae cells. Each one no bigger than a speck of dust. Yet each one contains the complete photosynthetic machinery that took nature billions of years to perfect. These aren't ordinary algae. They've been carefully modified in the laboratory. Scientists have changed their genetic instructions, teaching them new tricks while preserving their ancient wisdom. Some of these modified algae can absorb different colors of light. Others can work more efficiently in low light conditions. Still others have been designed to produce specific chemicals instead of just sugar and oxygen. The goal isn't to replace natural photosynthesis. It's to learn from it. To understand its secrets so deeply that humans can create new solutions for old problems. In another part of the laboratory, graduate student Marcus Williams tends to a wall of glass tubes. Each tube bubbles with life. Green water circulates through transparent coils. LED lights shine with carefully controlled colors and intensities. These are photobioreactors. Think of them as farms for microscopic organisms. But instead of growing in soil under the open sky, these tiny farmers work in controlled conditions. Perfect temperature. Ideal nutrients. Precisely measured light. The algae in these reactors don't just make oxygen as a waste product. They've been engineered to capture carbon dioxide from the air and transform it into useful materials. Some produce oils that can be turned into fuel. Others create plastics that naturally break down in the environment. It sounds like science fiction, but it's happening in laboratories around the world. Scientists are teaching single-celled organisms to become living factories. Green factories that run on sunlight and breathe in pollution. The process begins with understanding natural photosynthesis in extraordinary detail. Researchers use instruments that can measure individual molecules. They track the path of single atoms as they move through the photosynthetic process. They discovered that photosynthesis is even more elegant than anyone imagined. The way chlorophyll molecules are arranged to capture light. The precisely timed chemical reactions that split water and build sugar. The molecular machines that spin like tiny motors to create energy. Every discovery reveals new possibilities for engineering. Some scientists focus on improving the efficiency of photosynthesis itself. Natural photosynthesis converts only about 1% of sunlight into stored chemical energy. That might sound low, but it's actually remarkable when you consider all the other things plants must do to survive. But what if organisms didn't need to worry about survival? What if they could focus entirely on photosynthesis? In carefully controlled laboratory conditions, modified organisms can achieve much higher efficiencies. They don't need to build roots or bark or flowers. They don't need to defend against insects or survive winter. They can dedicate all their resources to the chemistry of light and carbon. Other researchers are working on completely artificial photosynthesis. They're building systems that use human-made materials to split water and capture carbon dioxide. No living organisms required. These artificial systems use specially designed catalysts instead of chlorophyll. Silicon and metal compounds that can absorb sunlight and drive chemical reactions. The goal is to create devices that work like leaves but can be mass-produced in factories. Some of these artificial leaves can already split water to produce hydrogen gas. Others can convert carbon dioxide into methanol or other useful chemicals. They're not as efficient as biological systems yet, but they're improving rapidly. The most exciting developments combine biological and artificial approaches. Hybrid systems that use living organisms alongside human-engineered components. The best of both worlds working together. For example, some researchers grow algae on specially designed surfaces that enhance light absorption. Others combine modified bacteria with artificial catalysts to create new chemical pathways that don't exist in nature. These hybrid approaches acknowledge something important. Nature's solutions are incredibly sophisticated, refined by billions of years of evolution. But they're also constrained by the need to keep organisms alive and reproducing. Human engineering can remove some of those constraints while preserving the elegant chemistry that makes photosynthesis so effective. The applications extend far beyond just producing fuel or chemicals. Scientists envision photosynthetic systems that could help clean up environmental pollution. Algae that eat excess nitrogen from agricultural runoff. Bacteria that consume carbon dioxide directly from power plant emissions. Some researchers are even working on photosynthetic buildings. Structures whose walls contain living systems that purify air while generating energy. Architecture that breathes and grows and contributes to environmental health. The challenges are immense. Living systems are complex and sometimes unpredictable. They can evolve in unexpected ways. They need maintenance and care. They're affected by temperature, pH, nutrients, and countless other factors. But the potential rewards are equally immense. A world where energy production actually cleans the air instead of polluting it. Where waste becomes a resource. Where human technology works in harmony with natural processes. Late at night in laboratories around the world, scientists continue their patient work. They adjust light intensities. They measure growth rates. They analyze the chemistry of tiny organisms that most people will never see. They're driven by the same curiosity that makes children wonder how plants can eat sunlight. But they're also motivated by urgent global challenges. Climate change. Air pollution. The need for sustainable energy sources. In their quiet, methodical way, these researchers are writing the next chapter in the story of photosynthesis. They're learning to speak the language that plants have used for billions of years. And they're beginning to imagine new conversations between human technology and the green world. The algae in their glowing tanks continue their ancient work. Absorbing light, splitting water, building molecules from simple ingredients. But now they do it in service of human dreams as well as their own survival. Perhaps these laboratory leaves will teach us not just how to copy photosynthesis, but how to improve upon it. How to create systems that are even more efficient at turning sunlight into solutions for a world that desperately needs cleaner air. Close your eyes and imagine walking through a city 50 years from now. The morning sun rises over gleaming towers that shimmer with an unusual quality. At first glance, they look like any modern buildings. Glass and steel reaching toward the sky. But something is different. The walls are breathing. Thin films cover the building's surfaces like translucent skin. These films ripple gently in the breeze. They're not decorative. They're alive with purpose. Each square foot contains millions of microscopic workers, busily cleaning the air around them. As you walk down the street, you notice that the air tastes different. Cleaner. Fresher. Like the air after a thunderstorm, but in the heart of a bustling metropolis. This is the vision that drives researchers working on urban photosynthesis today. They dream of cities that don't just consume clean air and produce pollution. Instead, they imagine urban environments that actively improve the atmosphere around them. Places where human technology works alongside natural processes to create something better than either could achieve alone. The inspiration comes from forests. A single mature tree can process about 48 pounds of carbon dioxide in a year. It releases enough oxygen to support 2 people. But trees take decades to grow and need specific conditions to thrive. What if cities could do the same work, but faster and more efficiently? Scientists are developing artificial systems that mimic photosynthesis but work around the clock. Unlike plants, which rest at night, these systems never sleep. They continue purifying air 24 hours a day. Some designs use specially engineered algae grown in transparent panels. Picture building facades covered with these living walls. During the day, they photosynthesize like any plant. At night, they continue processing pollutants using stored energy. The algae in these systems aren't ordinary pond scum. They've been carefully selected and sometimes genetically modified to thrive in urban conditions. They can handle temperature fluctuations. They resist contamination. They work efficiently even when air quality is poor. Other approaches use completely artificial materials. Researchers have created synthetic compounds that behave like chlorophyll but are more durable and efficient. These artificial photosynthetic systems can be built into paint, coatings, or architectural materials. Imagine painting your house with a coating that absorbs carbon dioxide and releases oxygen. Or building roads with materials that clean car exhaust as vehicles drive over them. In the Netherlands, designers have created outdoor structures called smog-free towers. These aren't exactly photosynthetic, but they demonstrate how cities can actively clean their own air. The towers use electric fields to collect pollution particles from the atmosphere. They're like giant air purifiers disguised as modern art sculptures. The collected pollution gets compressed into small cubes that can be turned into jewelry. It's a poetic transformation. Urban smog becomes something beautiful that people can wear as a reminder of what's possible. But the most ambitious visions go far beyond individual buildings or towers. Researchers imagine entire city districts designed around air purification. Parks filled with hybrid trees that combine natural photosynthesis with artificial enhancement. Street lights that double as air scrubbers. Public art installations that happen to consume greenhouse gases. Transportation could become part of the solution too. Electric buses with photosynthetic panels on their roofs. Subway stations with living walls that process the carbon dioxide from commuters' breath. Even personal vehicles that clean more air than they pollute. The technology is advancing rapidly. In laboratories around the world, prototypes are being tested and refined. Some focus on efficiency. How much pollution can be processed per square foot? Others prioritize durability. How long can these systems operate without maintenance? Cost remains a significant challenge. Currently, artificial photosynthetic systems are expensive to build and maintain. But costs are dropping as the technology improves and production scales up. Solar panels followed a similar path. Once prohibitively expensive, they're now competitive with traditional energy sources. The integration challenges are equally complex. Cities are complicated ecosystems of pipes, wires, foundations, and infrastructure. Adding new systems requires careful planning and coordination. But some cities are already experimenting with pilot projects. Milan has installed photosynthetic panels on some public buildings. Mexico City is testing air purifying structures in its most polluted districts. Singapore has integrated living walls into its urban planning requirements. These early projects are teaching valuable lessons. They show which technologies work in real-world conditions. They reveal unexpected benefits, like how photosynthetic walls can also help regulate building temperatures and manage rainwater. They also demonstrate something equally important. People respond positively to cities that feel more alive and natural. Buildings that breathe and walls that clean the air create emotional connections. They make urban life feel less artificial and more harmonious. The psychological impact might be as important as the environmental benefits. When people see their city actively working to improve air quality, they feel hope. They begin to imagine other ways that human technology could support rather than damage natural systems. Some researchers are exploring biomimetic approaches that go beyond just copying photosynthesis. They study how forest ecosystems process air, water, and nutrients. Then they design urban systems that recreate these natural cycles using a combination of living organisms and engineered materials. These approaches could address multiple urban challenges simultaneously: air pollution, water management, urban heat islands, even food production through vertical farming integrated into building design. The timeline for these innovations varies widely. Simple photosynthetic coatings might be commercially available within a few years. Complex integrated systems could take decades to develop and implement. But the research continues in laboratories and pilot projects around the world. Each breakthrough brings the vision closer to reality. Each successful demonstration makes the next step easier to imagine and fund. As you prepare for sleep tonight, picture that future city again. The breathing walls, the clean air, the harmony between human creativity and natural processes. This isn't just a fantasy. It's a goal that researchers are working toward with careful science and patient engineering. They're learning to speak the chemical language that plants have used for billions of years. And they're beginning to teach that language to the built environment around us. The transition from laboratory to cityscape won't happen overnight. But each small step forward brings us closer to urban environments that give back more than they take, creating islands of clean air in a world that desperately needs them. Perhaps the most exciting possibility isn't just cleaning the air we already have, but actively removing excess carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, turning our cities into vast machines that help heal the climate itself. Imagine holding a single leaf in your palm. To your eyes, it looks perfectly ordinary. Green, with delicate veins running through its surface. But this leaf carries a secret written in its genetic code. A small change in its DNA that makes it twice as good at cleaning carbon dioxide from the air. This is the frontier where science meets hope. Where researchers work with the most fundamental code of life itself. Every living thing carries its blueprint in strands of DNA. These molecular instructions determine everything about an organism. The color of its leaves. The shape of its flowers. How fast it grows. And most importantly for our story, how efficiently it photosynthesizes. For billions of years, evolution has been editing these genetic instructions. Random changes occur naturally. Most are harmful and disappear quickly. But occasionally, a change makes an organism better suited to its environment. These beneficial changes spread and become permanent. This process created the incredible diversity of photosynthetic life on Earth. But evolution works slowly. Changes take generations to spread. And evolution doesn't have goals. It can't aim for specific improvements that would help solve today's environmental challenges. Human scientists, however, can. Using tools of genetic engineering, researchers can read the DNA instructions inside plants and other photosynthetic organisms. More importantly, they can rewrite those instructions with precision that evolution could never achieve. The process begins with understanding exactly which genes control photosynthesis. Scientists have identified the genetic instructions for making chlorophyll, for building the protein machinery that captures light, for the enzymes that convert carbon dioxide into sugar. Once they understand these genetic recipes, they can modify them. They can take a gene from one organism and insert it into another. They can enhance existing genes to work more efficiently. They can even create entirely new genetic instructions that don't exist in nature. Consider the enzyme RUBISCO that we met earlier. This protein is crucial for photosynthesis, but it has a significant flaw. It sometimes mistakes oxygen for carbon dioxide. When this happens, photosynthesis becomes less efficient. Scientists are working to improve RUBISCO through genetic modification. They're creating versions that are better at distinguishing between oxygen and carbon dioxide. Some of these improved enzymes come from bacteria that live in extreme environments. Others are entirely artificial, designed by computers and built using genetic engineering. Early results are promising. Plants with improved RUBISCO can photosynthesize up to 40% more efficiently. They grow faster and capture more carbon dioxide from the air. Other researchers focus on expanding the range of light that plants can use. Natural chlorophyll primarily absorbs red and blue light. It reflects green light, which is why most plants appear green to our eyes. But what if plants could use green light too? Or infrared light that we can't see? Scientists are inserting genes from different organisms to expand the photosynthetic palette. Some use pigments from purple bacteria. Others incorporate light harvesting systems from algae that live in deep, dark waters. These modified plants can work with a broader spectrum of sunlight. They can photosynthesize more efficiently in shade or under artificial lights. They could potentially grow in environments where ordinary plants struggle. The applications extend beyond just making photosynthesis more efficient. Researchers are also teaching organisms to produce useful materials while they photosynthesize. Some modified algae create biodegradable plastics. Others produce medicines or industrial chemicals. A few are designed to consume specific pollutants while generating oxygen. They literally eat contamination and breathe out clean air. Trees present particularly exciting possibilities for genetic modification. Their size and longevity make them powerful tools for environmental improvement. A genetically enhanced tree could continue cleaning air for decades or centuries. Scientists are developing trees that grow faster and larger than their natural counterparts. These enhanced trees pull more carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and store it as wood. Some are designed to thrive in degraded landscapes where normal trees can't survive. Other research focuses on making trees more resilient to climate change. Enhanced heat tolerance, improved drought resistance, better ability to survive diseases and pests. These traits could help forests survive in a changing world while continuing their vital role as Earth's lungs. Agricultural crops offer another avenue for genetic enhancement. Imagine corn or wheat that captures significantly more carbon dioxide while growing. These crops could help remove excess greenhouse gases from the atmosphere while producing food. Some modified crop plants can also improve soil health. They form enhanced partnerships with beneficial bacteria in their roots. These partnerships help plants access nutrients more efficiently while storing carbon in the soil. The potential for genetic modification extends to microscopic organisms too. Researchers are creating bacterial communities designed to thrive in polluted environments. These engineered microbes can break down toxic compounds while photosynthesizing and producing oxygen. Some of these bacterial systems can even work in conditions that would kill normal plants. They can handle high temperatures, acidic water, or contaminated soil. They could potentially clean up environmental damage while generating clean air. However, genetic modification raises important questions and concerns. How do we ensure that modified organisms are safe for the environment? What happens if they interact with wild populations in unexpected ways? How do we balance potential benefits with possible risks? Scientists approach these questions with careful research and extensive testing. Modified organisms undergo years of study before being released into the environment. Researchers monitor their behavior and interactions. They design safety mechanisms that prevent uncontrolled spread. Regulatory agencies around the world review proposed genetic modifications. They require evidence of safety and benefit before approving new organisms. The process is slow and thorough, designed to minimize risks while allowing beneficial innovations. Public acceptance is equally important. Many people feel uncomfortable with the idea of modifying natural organisms. Others worry about unintended consequences. Scientists work to address these concerns through education and transparent communication about their research. The goal isn't to replace natural ecosystems with genetically modified organisms. Instead, researchers hope to supplement and enhance nature's existing capabilities. To create tools that can help address environmental challenges while working alongside natural systems. Some of the most promising approaches combine genetic modification with traditional conservation efforts. Enhanced trees planted in restored forests. Modified crops grown using sustainable farming practices. Engineered bacteria used to clean up pollution before ecosystems are replanted with native species. As genetic engineering tools become more precise and affordable, the possibilities continue to expand. Scientists can now make smaller, more targeted changes to organisms. They can fine-tune specific traits without affecting other characteristics. The field moves rapidly, with new discoveries and techniques emerging regularly. What seems impossible today might become routine within a few years. In laboratories around the world, researchers continue writing new chapters in the genetic code of life. They work with the patience of gardeners and the precision of engineers, nurturing possibilities that could help heal our planet's atmosphere. But as they explore the power to rewrite life's instruction manual, they also grapple with deeper questions about the relationship between human technology and the natural world, and how to honor the ancient wisdom encoded in every living leaf. Take a slow, deep breath. Hold it gently in your lungs for a moment. Now release it slowly into the night air. That breath you just took has traveled an incredible journey. The oxygen filling your lungs was once locked away in ancient rocks beneath the ocean floor. It was liberated by photosynthesis, perhaps in a rainforest canopy or floating in polar seas. It has circulated through the atmosphere, been breathed by countless other creatures, and somehow found its way to you. The carbon dioxide you just exhaled will begin its own journey. It might drift to a nearby tree and become part of a leaf. It could travel across continents before settling into the ocean. It might remain in the atmosphere for decades before finally being captured by a blade of grass. This is the great breathing of the planet. An intricate dance of give and take that has continued for billions of years. We call it the carbon cycle, but it's more like a vast conversation. Every living thing participates. Every breath is both a question and an answer. Every leaf is both speaker and listener in this chemical dialogue that spans the globe. Trees don't just photosynthesize as individuals. They're connected underground through networks of roots and fungi. These connections allow them to share nutrients, water, and even chemical messages. When one tree is attacked by insects, it can warn its neighbors through these underground networks. A forest thinks collectively. It responds to threats and opportunities as a single organism. Old trees feed nutrients to young seedlings. Healthy trees support sick ones. The entire ecosystem works together to maintain balance. This wisdom of interconnection extends beyond single forests. Mountain forests influence weather patterns that bring rain to distant valleys. Ocean phytoplankton affect the chemistry of polar ice caps. The Amazon rainforest helps regulate global climate patterns through its massive photosynthetic activity. Everything is connected to everything else through the patient work of photosynthesis. For 4 billion years, life has been fine-tuning this global system. Ice ages came and went. Continents drifted. Species evolved and went extinct. Through all these changes, photosynthesis adapted and persevered. The system has remarkable resilience. When volcanic eruptions blocked sunlight, cold-adapted photosynthetic organisms thrived. When meteor impacts disrupted ecosystems, life found new ways to capture light and process carbon. When atmospheric chemistry changed, evolution produced new forms of photosynthesis. This long history teaches us something important about engineering new solutions for clean air. Nature's approaches aren't just efficient. They're also stable and interconnected. They work together rather than in isolation. When we design artificial photosynthetic systems, we need to consider how they'll fit into existing natural cycles. Will they compete with natural organisms for resources? Will they disrupt established ecological relationships? How can they complement rather than replace nature's own solutions? The most promising approaches acknowledge this interconnectedness. They work with natural systems rather than against them. Enhance trees that still support wildlife. Artificial leaves that provide habitat for beneficial bacteria. Urban photosynthetic systems that also manage water and provide green spaces. Some researchers study how natural systems maintain balance over long periods. They observe how forests recover from disturbances, how ocean ecosystems respond to changing conditions, how different types of photosynthetic organisms cooperate and compete. These observations guide the development of more robust engineered systems. Instead of single solutions, researchers increasingly design networks of interconnected approaches. Multiple types of artificial photosynthesis working together. Genetic modifications combined with ecosystem restoration. Urban systems integrated with rural land management. The goal isn't to create a single super-efficient artificial leaf that solves all our problems. It's to create diverse, interconnected systems that can adapt and respond to changing conditions just as natural ecosystems do. This requires patience and humility. Nature has had billions of years to develop and test its solutions. Human engineering has existed for only a few centuries. We're still learning the basic principles that natural systems have long mastered. But we're also learning to ask better questions. Instead of how can we make photosynthesis more efficient, we ask how can we create systems that are both efficient and stable. Instead of how can we capture more carbon dioxide, we ask how can we enhance natural carbon cycles without disrupting them. The answers often come from studying the balance of all things. How natural systems maintain themselves over time. How they respond to stress and recover from damage. How individual organisms work together to create something larger than themselves. Traditional ecological wisdom offers valuable insights too. Indigenous cultures around the world have observed and worked with natural cycles for thousands of years. Their understanding of how ecosystems function provides important guidance for modern engineering efforts. Some researchers collaborate with indigenous communities to develop more holistic approaches to environmental restoration. These partnerships combine scientific tools with traditional knowledge about how natural systems maintain balance. The results are often more successful than purely technological approaches. Projects that restore degraded lands while also removing carbon from the atmosphere. Agricultural systems that increase food production while enhancing soil health. Urban designs that manage stormwater while also purifying air. As we develop new tools for cleaning the atmosphere, we're also rediscovering ancient truths about balance and interconnection. The health of the whole depends on the health of the parts. The strength of the system comes from diversity and cooperation. Long-term solutions require patience and respect for natural wisdom. This doesn't mean abandoning modern technology. Instead, it means designing technology that works in harmony with natural principles. Creating solutions that strengthen rather than weaken the Earth's existing systems. The most effective approaches to atmospheric cleaning will likely combine the best of both worlds. Human creativity and precision working alongside nature's patience and wisdom. Artificial systems that enhance natural ones. Engineering that supports rather than replaces ecological processes. In forests around the world tonight, trees continue their ancient work. They photosynthesize during the day and process nutrients at night. They communicate through chemical signals and support each other through underground networks. They maintain the balance that has kept our planet's atmosphere breathable for millions of years. As we dream of cleaner air and healthier skies, we must remember that we're not starting from scratch. We're joining a conversation that began long before humans existed and will continue long after we're gone. The question isn't whether we can engineer better solutions for clean air. The question is whether we can learn to integrate those solutions into the vast, patient, interconnected system that has already been cleaning our planet's atmosphere for billions of years. And tomorrow, as dawn breaks over forests and cities alike, that ancient system will continue its work, offering lessons for anyone wise enough to listen and humble enough to learn. Let your breathing slow and deepen as you drift toward sleep. Feel your body settling into the quiet rhythm of rest. And as you do, imagine waking up 50 years from now in a world transformed. You step outside and take your first breath of morning air. It tastes different. Cleaner than anything you've ever experienced. Fresher than mountain air after a thunderstorm. Sweeter than ocean breezes carrying the scent of distant islands. This isn't magic. It's the result of countless small innovations working together. Each one inspired by the ancient art of photosynthesis. Each one designed to heal the sky above us. The trees lining your street look familiar, yet somehow different. Their leaves seem to shimmer with an inner light. These are hybrid trees, their natural photosynthesis enhanced by genetic modification so subtle you can't see them. They grow faster than their ancestors. They capture carbon dioxide more efficiently. They release oxygen with a generosity that fills every breath with life. Buildings around you wear living skins. Transparent panels filled with modified algae cover south-facing walls. These microscopic workers toil day and night, drinking carbon dioxide from the air and breathing out pure oxygen. The buildings themselves have become part of the Earth's respiratory system. Street lamps don't just provide light. They house artificial photosynthetic systems that work around the clock. During the day, they use sunlight to power chemical reactions that clean the air. At night, they continue the process using stored energy, like tireless guardians of atmospheric purity. Even the pavement beneath your feet participates in this healing. Special concrete mixed with photocatalytic materials breaks down air pollutants when sunlight touches its surface. Every sidewalk and plaza becomes a quiet contributor to cleaner air. In parks and gardens, natural and artificial systems work in harmony. Ancient oak trees share space with engineered carbon capture plants that can thrive in any soil. Flower beds contain organisms that were designed in laboratories but bloom as beautifully as any wildflower. Children play on grass that photosynthesizes more efficiently than any natural variety. This grass was created by combining genes from different plant species, creating something new yet thoroughly alive. It grows thick and green while pulling extraordinary amounts of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. The integration of these systems required decades of careful planning. Scientists worked with urban designers, ecologists, and community members to create solutions that enhance rather than replace natural ecosystems. Every innovation was tested not just for efficiency, but for its impact on the complex web of life. Mistakes were made along the way. Some early artificial systems proved harmful to beneficial insects. Others competed too aggressively with native plants. But researchers learned from each failure, gradually developing approaches that supported biodiversity while cleaning the air. The breakthrough came when scientists finally understood how to create truly symbiotic relationships between engineered and natural systems. Artificial photosynthetic devices that provided nutrients to nearby plants. Modified organisms that enhance soil health while capturing carbon. Technologies that worked like beneficial members of existing ecosystems. Rural areas transformed too. Farmlands became massive carbon sinks through the adoption of crops engineered to store more carbon in their roots and soil. These plants still produced food, but they also acted like biological vacuum cleaners, pulling excess greenhouse gases from the atmosphere. Forests were carefully restored using a combination of traditional conservation and genetic enhancement. Fast-growing trees helped rapidly re-establish forest cover. Meanwhile, slow-growing native species provided the complex habitat relationships that support biodiversity. The oceans benefited from floating platforms covered with artificial photosynthetic systems. These sea gardens complemented natural phytoplankton, helping to restore the ocean's capacity to absorb carbon dioxide. They also provided new habitats for marine life, creating artificial reefs that teemed with fish and sea plants. Desert regions bloomed with specially adapted organisms that could thrive in harsh conditions while cleaning the air. Some used the CAM photosynthesis we learned about earlier, working at night when temperatures were cooler. Others employed completely artificial systems powered by abundant desert sunlight. The transformation wasn't just technological. It was cultural too. People began to see themselves as partners with the green world rather than separate from it. Gardens became laboratories where families experimented with new photosynthetic plants. Schools taught children to tend both natural and artificial systems that cleaned their neighborhood air. Art and science merged in beautiful ways. Sculptors created works that were also functional air purifiers. Musicians composed pieces inspired by the chemical rhythms of photosynthesis. Poets wrote verses about the marriage of human creativity and natural wisdom. The economics of clean air evolved as well. Carbon removal became a valuable service. Companies competed to develop the most effective and beautiful systems for capturing atmospheric carbon. Communities invested in photosynthetic infrastructure the way previous generations had invested in roads and power grids. International cooperation flourished as nations worked together to heal the global atmosphere. Tropical countries became exporters of oxygen-producing systems. Temperate regions specialized in carbon storage technologies. Arctic nations developed photosynthetic solutions adapted to extreme cold. The results became visible from space. Satellite images showed forests growing greener and thicker. Urban areas took on new hues as living systems spread across building surfaces. Even the chemistry of the atmosphere began to shift toward healthier levels. Children born into this world took clean air for granted, just as you might take clean water or abundant food for granted. They grew up understanding that human technology could work in harmony with natural systems. They learned to tend both gardens and laboratories, seeing no contradiction between the two. But perhaps the most beautiful change was in how people related to their breath. Each inhalation became a conscious connection to the vast network of photosynthetic systems working on their behalf. Every exhalation was an offering to the plants and artificial systems that would transform their carbon dioxide into food and oxygen. The boundary between natural and artificial blurred until it no longer mattered. What mattered was that the air grew cleaner each year. That children could play outside without worry. That the planet's atmospheric systems grew stronger and more resilient. This future required no miracles, only the patient application of knowledge we're already developing. Every technique described in this vision has roots in current research. Every innovation builds on our growing understanding of photosynthesis and its possibilities. The path forward isn't certain, but it's visible. Scientists continue to unravel the secrets of photosynthesis. Engineers work to translate those secrets into practical solutions. Communities experiment with integrating green technologies into daily life. And slowly, carefully, the vision of tomorrow's garden grows closer to reality. As you drift deeper into sleep, carry this vision with you. Imagine the children who will inherit the systems we create today. Picture the clean air they'll breathe, the green cities they'll inhabit, the harmony between human ingenuity and natural wisdom they'll take for granted. Tonight, as you rest, photosynthesis continues its ancient work all around you. In the darkness, trees process the day's carbon capture. Algae in distant oceans prepare for tomorrow's light. And in laboratories around the world, scientists tend their own gardens of possibility, nurturing the seeds of cleaner air for generations yet to come.